Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are and wherever you're watching from. My name is Matt Pierce, host of Visual Lounge, and today, this is episode 251. It's actually part 2 of episode 250. We're celebrating with some more great guests. We've got Abbey Cooke, who's going to be talking about the curse of knowledge. Got Jeff Weaver, who's going to be talking about how visual should be a support and not necessarily the star, which I think is a really great advice. And Robyn Defelice, who is going to be talking about how these skills that we're gaining as visual designers, as learning designers, can apply to other things, including building great systems. So I just want to say, as before we jump into their great comments, I want to say thank you to everyone for watching the show, listening to the show. It is very meaningful to me that we've made it this far for this long and had so many great guests and so many great listeners. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got an experience or something that's touched you or got you thinking about something, I'd love to hear it. You can always email me at thevisuallounge@textmint.com. I'm also available, easily findable on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear your thoughts and comments, of course, because this show thrives on that kind of feedback. It helps us. And I just want to keep making stuff that is going to be useful and helpful for you as the audience. So with that said, I hope you're getting a lot out of these episodes. I hope you're getting out a lot from the guests that we have on the show. And I'd love to hear from you. And I want to, again, thank you for all the things that you do to listen and be part of the show. With that said, let's dive into today's episode.
Being somebody whose whole job is to impart knowledge to others, I would say that we always want to keep in mind the curse of knowledge, which is the phenomena that occurs when you learn something and basically immediately forget what it was like to not know that thing. We can so easily lose empathy for somebody who doesn't know what we do. And so we need to remember that when someone doesn't know something, our whole goal should just be to help them know it. We shouldn't judge them for not knowing it. We shouldn't laugh at them for not knowing it. We shouldn't throw our hands up and say, how could you possibly not know that? We just need to help them know it. And remember that their life experience is different from yours, and they just never picked up what you know. So have empathy for somebody when they don't know something and to just help them know it.
You know, I mean, I cannot believe all those people who didn't know that before. Like, what were they even thinking?
Right? How could you possibly? You should know this by now.
Now
You were born with it. It was in your DNA.
Because I now have the curse of knowledge. I know about the curse of knowledge. It's very recursive, isn't it? Well,
yes.
Well, Abby, so okay, because I hear what you're saying, and I think the challenge is that by the nature of being a curse of knowledge is that it is easy to forget and be in those shoes. So do you have any quick tips, techniques, ideas for someone who's like, I want to be better, but like what's some things that maybe you do that pull you out of that, like, and into that remembering, like, oh yeah, they don't know, they have different circumstances.
I have two big ones. One is constantly have a conversation with a learner about what they know and don't know in a very non-judgmental way. So if I was teaching somebody something about music, I would say, okay, how much do you know about scales? Nothing? Okay, so let's take it back. How much do you know about like the notes on a piano? Okay, so did you ever learn the do, re, mi stuff in school? Okay, let's start there. So we're trying to figure out how much they know, but we're also not judging them for not knowing something. So when they say, I don't know anything about that, say, okay, well, let's back it up a step. The other piece of advice I have is to de-chunk your steps in instruction. So I have a friend who started learning to drive very late in her adulthood, and her father put her behind the wheel of the car and said, now start the car. And she said, I don't know how to do that. And he said, just start the car. And what she was looking for was, do I turn the ignition? Do I put my foot on the brake? What do I need to do? Because for him, that was one step. But for her, she needed it broken up into multiples. So de-chunk your steps further than you think you need to for your learners, because over time, that has become one thing for you. But for a new learner, it's multiple things.
Fantastic. Well, Abby, that's great advice. And I recommend that we all start de-chunking and stepping back, and hopefully we make everyone's life a little bit better in the instruction we create, or the videos or images or whatever we're doing. So thanks for joining me.
Help people know things. That's all we need to do.
I love that. Help people know things. And that's what we're all about in the Visual Lounge, helping people know things.
One of the things that I think has really improved my use of visuals in learning and presentation at large is the understanding that those things are there to enhance and back up my message and not to be the star of the show, but a supporting player. And that's not to take away from their importance. In fact, they're crucially important to reinforcing the right message, because as a presenter, I have a tendency to go off on to tangents from time to time, as some of us do. And having a good, strong visual that really hones in on the message that I'm trying to keep my audience focused on operates in a couple of ways. It provides reinforcement. It provides clarity when I do deviate down those rabbit paths that I'm chasing. And it gives me a sense of place to always want to come back to. And it creates that anchoring effect of giving more weight to what I want to say most. So I think for me, less than perhaps any one technical trick, the most important thing about my use of visuals, the most important lesson I've learned, and the guiding principle I'm always trying to come back to, is to really be thoughtful about how does the visual you're displaying support and enhance and reinforce the most important key message that you're trying to put forward, because your audience is going to connect that in their brains. It's what they see to you and focused on you. That background that might be up behind you, or that title that might be down at the bottom, it's absorbing into the learning as well, and it's helping create that link and that memory to it. So being really thoughtful about that and really challenging myself to say, how can a visual represent what I want it to, enhance things the way I want it to? I had a tendency in my early days of doing presentations, I would try to get cutesy, right? And put up a clever visual, or maybe something funny, or, here's the point I'm trying to make, but here's the joke in the background. And I learned quickly, thankfully, that oftentimes that actually has more of a distraction effect than it does an enhancement effect. So aligning visual and message is probably the most important thing I've learned to do in my journey with creating visual storytelling. What is the message? And then backing into, from the message, what visual really represents that in a clear and obvious way. I think when you try to get too clever with it, it becomes muddled at times. One of the tricks that I often use is I'll just type in the thought that I have, just literally the thought that I have, a search bar, or a clip art engine, or some of the graphics and design, warehouses that I've used for visual images over the years. I just type it in as is, and I see what it kicks back first and foremost. Like, what is the engine, the search engine, trying to tell me that it thinks I'm going for? And then from there, I'll let that sort of take me down a rabbit hole. And if I find an image or an icon that is sort of close to what I like, a lot of times then what I'll do is I'll open up the details on that, and I'll look for all the things that the artist who conceived that image tagged that image with. And sometimes those tags will lead me to a similar collection of art that I'm like, oh, you know what? Okay, they saw this image, or they created this image thinking of this word or phrase. I thought of it this way, but now I see what they're saying. So let me click on that one, and I'll go down that rabbit hole. And sometimes that leads me to another series of images that actually even better enhance what I'm trying to find. So there's a little bit more of a follow the rabbit than any kind of science to it. But I think if you know what your message is, and then you bounce it off even just a search engine to say, what do you think this image should look like? It can lead you to interesting places that ultimately lead you to a visual that really makes sense. And when it comes down to picking one, I think sometimes you've got to go with what hits emotionally, right? Because we're humans, we're emotional creatures. And so when I find the right image, I feel it more than I think it. If I have to explain it to myself, if I have to rationalize it, I'm usually not on the right image. But when I see an image and immediately it evokes the feeling I'm trying to get across, that's the image that usually is, in my mind, the best one.
Well, for me, And especially because I haven't been doing a lot of e-learning per se, those skills come in handy for other things you do. So, for example, for me, I did a whole series at the beginning of the year called Pay It Forward 50 to celebrate my 50th birthday. And kind of like what you're doing here, I provided a platform for not 50 people. It was like almost 200 and some people, but nonetheless, it was a insight into efficiency. How about, let's put it that way. And what I mean by that is I had to get really smart about planning. And to do some of that planning, I did a couple of things that maybe people might like I do share about, because I think, boy, if I can save you the time, then I'd rather you know, do these things. And it was two different things. One was in Camtasia, and then one was actually what was it? Canva. So two C's, Canva and Camtasia. So obviously I had 50 days to pay it forward. So I always had like the day, and then I also had week themes. So what I did was I created a template of the image that I wanted to use as kind of like the logo, if you want to call it that, but it was the image that marked the Pay It Forward series. And I created in Canva every day, all 50 days plus the week pieces. I created those all in one sitting, just so that when I came to each day, if I was still in a rush, it wasn't one more thing I had to do. But the other thing I did, because I learned very quickly with LinkedIn, is that, you know, you can do the alt captions. So what I did was I created a side Word document. And in that Word document, I put in my alt language for the image so that I could copy paste that in as well. And that was pretty standard, because all you're doing is changing the name and date. So I could use the same standard alt tag again and again. So I did that, and I had like my hashtags and everything else that would be consistent every day. I had that in that Word document so I could do copy pasting. But when it came to the Camtasia piece, I miss videos and video editing, but I don't like putting me on video. So I needed to feel like I had some sleek, maybe professional aspects to it. And so what I really liked about using Camtasia was I created like my intro, outro pieces with my logo and the bedded music and all that fun stuff. I did all those pieces. So every time I came to do a recording, I was able to just do the recording, open up. Actually, it was a little bit of a cheat. I opened up the last project I worked on in Camtasia and did a save as, ripped out the old video, put in the new, and just realigned my intro, outro. But if I ever had to create a new one, I just had my intro, outro already in my media library, and it made it super easy and quick for me, because I didn't have to mess around with fading in the music and fading it back out, that type of thing. So as you can see, I created some things that I would call boilerplates or templates that just really made things efficient. But also what I came to appreciate about that whole experience over 50 days was the tiny details. So what I could do on a Sunday was sit and map out an entire week of events, and I could schedule them via LinkedIn at different times, but putting together the pieces. So working backwards, now I have to put the pieces together. The pieces were much easier to put together because I had a lot of the things in place. So just pulling in the unique content of the day and for the person I was highlighting against all the other pre-created pieces really reduced my time in getting pieces out for marketing. And I think as a person who does a lot of sharing via like LinkedIn and other pieces of social media, I've never done that. And so I have great appreciation for that process and the intensity of what it was. And then all those simple kind of almost like, sure, you should do things that maybe sometimes we don't do because we just don't do it. So those would be the things I'd say, hey, even if you're just doing day-to-day work, what are those things that you can create into quick templates or quick central documents, especially if you're working on a team. I didn't have anybody helping me, but if I did, I would have been able to give them those materials and they would have been able to help me just as equally. So that's what I would say has been helpful.
Well, first of all, I love that. And I need a class in organization from you, because batching things for me has never been my strong suit. But so tell me about this, because I can imagine someone's out there and saying, oh my gosh, Robyn, that is so much work. Was there anything that you found that as you're doing this kind of batching, it sounds like you did a lot of stuff, it's easier to get in roll. You're doing it on like your Sunday or whatever, you're reusing pieces. Was there anything from an organizational standpoint, like your organization, not thinking about a company or anything like that, but organizing your stuff that helped you stay on track? Because I imagine, here's what would happen. I'd be doing this. I'd go along and be like, did I pick Matt Pierce already? Like I'd get so lost in kind of just the size of it. Is there any advice you'd give about just keeping all that straight?
Don't be afraid of pen and paper. I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, I cleaned up my spacer. I would literally lift up my orange paper that had all 50 days. Like I had that was a span of 8 weeks. So I did per month. And so I would sit there and check, because then if I wanted to shuffle people, right? So like if I wanted to shuffle people, I could do it. When it came to really good point about the pay it forwards, which Matt, you were one of the pay it forward nominated profiles. So congrats again on that. But that was the piece that I really had to keep track of. And I had actually Excel sheets. So one of the other things that I didn't talk about was I used a product called Typeform. And so anybody that I invited to be part of the Pay It Forward series actually filled out my Typeform form so that I could track what they were willing to share and what they would do. And I had all their information on hand as well. Contact, LinkedIn profile, anything that maybe they wanted to have additional, like their Instagram, that kind of thing. When it came to the Pay It Forward 50s, which were the Friday pieces, again, that was a nomination. And so 10 people were highlighted as profiles of distinction on Fridays. And so I also had a form for that. And I maintained that by utilizing Excel. And each week, what I would do, to your point, was if somebody was used or I had done something with that person, they like I created tabs. So week 1, I, highlighted the people that I used, and then I removed them. And then I started week 2's tab. And when I when I took the people and used them in week 2, so it was like process of elimination as I kept going. So that was kind of fun. And I did keep track for the Pay It Forward profiles. I used a little bit of Excel coding to say, give me, highlight any, filled forms that are duplicates. So if I saw Matt Pierce twice, then I could take them and demonstrate that they were double nominated and highlight them in 1 week as opposed to across multiple weeks. So those are some of the other things I did. So now you know that I'm a super OCD person.
I'm just imagining right off screen is this cork board. You've got photos and screenshots and everything and red strings and everything is just...
There, I'm looking right above, there is a 4x4. There's a huge cork board right above my head right here. That's why I was laughing. I was like, oh no, how did you see that?
Well, Robyn, I love this. And, I think what it speaks to me is that just, in our processes, there's always room to become more efficient. And I think, I'll just say, because I'm not good at it. That's not my skill set, is be the really efficient person who's figured out, I've never met a spreadsheet that I loved. So, I'm sure a lot of people, and I have coworkers who are amazing at it, and I'm so grateful for them. But what it says to me is that there is skill here. There's things to learn, and that by doing that, it does allow us to get better. So I want to thank you for your insights and appreciate you sharing with us, and we'll have to have you back on the Visual Lounge.
I would love it. And thank you so much for having me on, Matt. I really appreciate it.
You bet. And thanks again. Hey everybody, what a great episode. What great thoughts. And I'm so thankful for them sharing those ideas with us today. We'll wrap up quickly today with just the same thing we do every single episode. We've been doing it for almost 250 plus times. And it is this, that we hope you find some time to level up every day. Thanks everybody.